I never imagined that at 62 years old, I'd be sitting in the back of a taxi heading to a homeless shelter with everything I owned crammed into 2 suitcases. But there I was, watching the familiar streets of Portland blur past the window, my hands trembling as I clutched my late husband's photograph. "You sure this is where you want to go, ma'am?" the driver asked, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror with a mixture of concern and pity. I nodded, not trusting my voice. What else could I say? That just 3 hours ago my daughter Jennifer and her husband Blake had stood in the doorway of what used to be my home and told me I had to leave. That my own child had looked me in the eye and said, "Mother, we can't have you here anymore. Blake's boss is coming for dinner next week, and honestly, your situation." It's embarrassing? The taxi pulled up in front of St. Mary's shelter. I paid the driver with the last of my cash, leaving just enough for maybe 2 days of food, and watched him drive away. For a moment, I considered calling Jennifer, begging her to reconsider, but I remembered the cold finality in her voice, the way Blake had stood behind her with his arms crossed, nodding in agreement. No, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. The shelter was busier than I expected. Women of all ages filled the common area, some talking quietly, others staring blankly at walls. I approached the desk, where a tired-looking volunteer barely glanced up. "First time?" she asked. "Yes. Fill this out. Dinner's at 6. You'll be in the overflow room tonight. We're at capacity." The overflow room turned out to be a converted storage area with 12 cots lined up against the walls. I chose one in the corner, as far from the door as possible, and sat down heavily. My whole body ached, not from physical pain, but from the weight of betrayal that seemed to press down on my chest like a stone. How had it come to this? 3 years ago, my husband Richard died suddenly of a heart attack. We'd been married for 40 years, raised Jennifer together, built a modest but comfortable life. After his death, I'd sold our family home, which was too big and full of memories, and moved in with Jennifer and Blake. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I figured out what to do next. But temporary became permanent, and somewhere along the way, I became an inconvenience. "You're new." I looked up to find an elderly woman standing beside my cot. She was dressed in layers of worn clothing, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, despite its obvious need for washing. But it was her eyes that caught me off guard. They were sharp, intelligent, and didn't match the rest of her appearance at all. "Yes," I managed. "First day." "I'm Catherine," she said, extending a hand that, I noticed, was remarkably well manicured for someone living in a shelter. "Mind if I sit?" I gestured to the cot across from mine, and she settled herself with surprising grace. "So," Catherine said, studying me with those penetrating eyes, "what's your story? You don't have the look of someone who's been on the streets long." I hesitated, then found myself telling her everything. Maybe it was because she was a stranger, or maybe it was because I'd been holding it in for so long, but the words poured out. I told her about Richard, about moving in with Jennifer, about how I'd tried so hard not to be a burden, how I'd cooked, cleaned, babysat their spoiled Pomeranian, how I'd made myself as small and invisible as possible. And then today, I finished, my voice cracking. Jennifer sat me down and said they needed their space, that it wasn't working out. Blake stood there the whole time looking at his phone, not even pretending to care. They gave me 2 hours to pack. Catherine listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I'm going to make you an unusual offer," she finally said, "and I need you to hear me out before you say no." I looked at her, confused. "I need someone to be my daughter," Catherine continued. "Just for a little while, a month, maybe 2. I need someone to come to dinners with me, attend some social functions, help me with a few projects. In return, you'll have a place to stay, food, spending money. Everything you need." I stared at her. "I don't understand. Why would you need someone to pretend to be your daughter?" "I have my reasons," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Good reasons. But I need someone I can trust, someone who understands what it means to be betrayed by family, someone who won't be doing it for the money. But we just met. How do you know you can trust me? Catherine smiled, and for the first time, I saw warmth in those sharp eyes. Because you told me your story without expecting anything in return. Because when I sat down, you didn't ask me for money or food, you offered me a seat. Because, she paused, I've been watching people in this shelter for 2 weeks, and you're the first person who looked at me like I was a person, not just another homeless woman. 2 weeks? I asked, confused. You've been staying here for 2 weeks? Research, she said cryptically. So, Dorothy, what do you say? Will you be my daughter for a while? Something in her voice, in the way she looked at me, made me believe her. Or maybe I was just desperate enough to grab onto any lifeline offered. Either way, I heard myself saying yes. Good. Catherine stood up. My driver will be here in 30 minutes. Pack your things. Your driver? I repeated, bewildered. Catherine pulled out a phone from beneath her layers of clothing. It was the latest model, I noticed, completely at odds with her appearance. She made a quick call, speaking in low tones, then turned back to me with a smile. All will be revealed soon, Dorothy. For now, just trust me. 30 minutes later, a black Mercedes pulled up in front of the shelter. A uniformed driver stepped out, opened the back door, and greeted Catherine like she was royalty. Welcome back, Mrs. Whitmore, he said. I trust your research was productive? Very much so, James, Catherine replied, her entire demeanor shifting. The hunched shoulders straightened, the shuffle became a confident stride. She turned to me as I stood frozen on the sidewalk. Come along, Dorothy. We have much to discuss. The drive through Portland's West Hills seemed to take forever. We climbed higher and higher until James pulled through an iron gate and up a long, tree-lined driveway. At the end sat a mansion that took my breath away. 3 stories of colonial architecture, with columns framing the entrance and gardens that looked like they belonged in a magazine. Catherine, I whispered, who are you? Someone who needed to understand what it means to have nothing, she replied. Come inside. I promise everything will make sense soon. The interior of the house was even more impressive than the exterior. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that I was pretty sure was original and worth more than my entire life savings. A woman in her 50s, dressed in an impeccable uniform, appeared from a side door. Mrs. Whitmore, welcome home, she said warmly. And this must be our guest? Margaret, this is Dorothy. She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the blue suite for her. Of course, ma'am. Will you both be dining this evening? Yes, in an hour. Dorothy, Margaret is my house manager. She's been with me for 20 years. If you need anything at all, ask her. Margaret smiled at me kindly. Come with me, dear. Let's get you settled. I followed her up a grand staircase, my mind reeling. The blue suite turned out to be larger than the apartment I'd shared with Richard during our first years of marriage. It had a sitting room, a bedroom with a 4-poster bed, and a bathroom with a soaking tub that looked like something from a spa. Mrs. Whitmore asked me to prepare some clothes for you, Margaret said, opening a closet to reveal a selection of outfits in what appeared to be my size. Nothing too formal yet. She thought you might want to rest and settle in tonight. Dinner will be served in the small dining room at 7. I'll come fetch you. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to process what was happening. Was this real? Had I really just been picked up from a homeless shelter by a woman who lived in a mansion and wanted me to pretend to be her daughter? I thought about calling Jennifer, telling her where I was, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the memory of how readily she'd turned me out. Whatever it was, I decided to wait, to see what Catherine really wanted. Dinner that evening was surreal. We sat at a table that could easily seat 12, served by Margaret and another staff member. Catherine had changed into elegant evening wear, her silver hair now styled perfectly. She looked every inch the wealthy socialite. I suppose you have questions, she said as we began our soup course. Many, I admitted. Starting with why you were at that shelter if you live here. Catherine set down her spoon and looked at me directly. 10 years ago, I had a family. A son, a daughter-in-law, 2 grandchildren. I built my hotels from nothing, worked 70-hour weeks for 40 years to create something lasting, something I could pass on. She paused, her jaw tightening slightly. My son Daniel was everything to me. Or so I thought. When my husband died 5 years ago, Daniel changed. Or maybe he just stopped hiding who he really was. He started asking about my will, about succession plans. His wife Jessica became suddenly interested in my health. They'd visit, but I could see them calculating, assessing. How much longer until the old woman dies and we inherit? I felt a chill run down my spine. This was hitting too close to home. 2 years ago, I overheard a conversation. Daniel and Jessica in my study, talking about how to have me declared incompetent so they could take control of the company. They were planning to put me in a nursing home and fight for power of attorney. Her voice remained steady, but I could see the pain in her eyes. My own son, planning to lock me away like an inconvenience. What did you do? I asked softly. I made my own plans. I have excellent lawyers, Dorothy. Very excellent lawyers. I restructured everything, put the company in a trust with ironclad protections. Then I called Daniel and Jessica here and told them what I'd overheard. I gave them a choice. Walk away with a generous settlement, or be written out entirely. They chose the settlement. They chose to contest everything in court. It got ugly, very ugly. Things were said that can never be unsaid. In the end, I won. They got nothing. And I was left alone in this house, wondering if everyone in my life had only ever wanted my money. She took a sip of wine before continuing. That's when I decided to conduct an experiment. I wanted to understand what it felt like to have nothing, to be invisible, to see how people treated someone they couldn't use. So I spent 2 weeks in that shelter, dressed as you saw me, observing. And what did you learn? That most people are kind, even when they have nothing themselves. That a few are predators, looking for any advantage, and that you, Dorothy, are someone with a genuinely good heart. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. You don't know me. We just met. I know enough. I saw you give half your dinner roll to the woman next to you who was still hungry. I saw you help that young mother with her baby even though you were exhausted. I saw you treat everyone with dignity, even when you were at your lowest point. Catherine reached across the table and took my hand. That's why I want you here. I'm not asking you to pretend forever, Dorothy. Just for a while. I'm planning something, and I need someone by my side who I can trust won't be swayed by money. Planning what? She smiled mysteriously. Patience. For now, just know that you're safe here. This is your home for as long as you need it, and who knows, maybe we both need family more than we realized. Over the next few days, I began to settle into a routine. Catherine and I would have breakfast together, then she'd work in her office while I explored the house and grounds. We'd have lunch, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with Margaret joining us. Evenings were spent in the library, reading or talking about our lives. Catherine told me about building her hotel empire, the challenges of being a woman in business in the 1970 seconds and 80 seconds. I told her about my marriage to Richard, the joy and heartbreak of raising Jennifer, the quiet life we'd built together. We were from different worlds, but our pain was similar. We'd both been betrayed by the people we'd sacrificed everything for. On the 5th day, Catherine made an announcement at breakfast. I think it's time we make this arrangement official, she said. I'm having a small gathering this Saturday, just a few close friends and business associates. I'd like to introduce you as my companion and, well, as someone I'm considering making part of my family permanently. My hand froze halfway to my coffee cup. Permanently? I've been thinking about adoption, Catherine said calmly, as if discussing the weather. I know it seems fast, but at our age, why wait? I need family. You need family. We get along well. Why not make it legal? Catherine, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, and say you'll come to the gathering Saturday. I want people to meet you. I agreed, though my mind was spinning. Adoption, at my age? It seemed absurd, but also appealing. Catherine had shown me more kindness in 5 days than Jennifer had in the past 3 years. Saturday arrived, and Margaret helped me dress in one of the elegant outfits Catherine had provided. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back looked poised, confident, expensive, not like someone who'd been living in a shelter just a week ago. The gathering was exactly as Catherine described, small but elegant. About 20 people circulated through the main rooms, sipping champagne and making polite conversation. Catherine introduced me to everyone as my dear friend Daughte, who's staying with me and has become quite indispensable. I was talking with one of Catherine's business partners about her hotel chain when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Mother? I turned, and there was Jennifer, standing in the foyer with Blake beside her. She looked stunning in a designer dress, but her face was a mask of shock. Jennifer, I said, my voice remarkably steady. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? What are you doing here? She looked around the room, taking in the obvious wealth, the elegant guests. How did you? Where have you been? We've been worried sick. The lie was so blatant that I almost laughed. Have you? Blake stepped forward, his usual smug expression replaced with something resembling confusion. Mrs. Chen, we've been trying to reach you. When you didn't call, we got concerned. You mean you got curious? I said quietly. Catherine appeared at my elbow, and I saw Jennifer's eyes widen as she recognized her. Mrs. Whitmore, Jennifer gushed, her entire demeanor shifting. What a surprise. I had no idea you knew my mother. Your mother? Catherine's eyebrow arched elegantly. How fascinating. Daughte, you never mentioned you had a daughter. The barb hit home. I saw Jennifer flinch. I didn't think it was relevant, I said, matching Catherine's cool tone. Well, this is wonderful. Blake interjected, his salesman's smile firmly in place. What a small world. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Blake Sutton. I work at Merrill Lynch. Jennifer and I have been hoping to connect with you about some investment opportunities. Have you now? Catherine said mildly. How interesting. Tell me, Jennifer, how long has it been since you've seen your mother? Jennifer's smile faltered. Oh, well, we've been so busy with work and… 8 days, I said clearly. It's been 8 days since I saw my daughter. That's when she asked me to leave her home. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the eyes of nearby guests turning toward us. Mother, that's not. You're making it sound, Jennifer stammered. I'm making it sound like what it was, I said, surprised by the strength in my own voice. You told me I was embarrassing you. You gave me 2 hours to pack. Blake stood there checking his phone while you explained that you needed your space. Blake's face turned red. That's not entirely fair, Mrs. Chen. We had discussed… Nothing. I cut him off. We discussed nothing. You decided, and I was expected to comply, which I did. Catherine squeezed my arm gently. Perhaps we should continue this conversation in my study. This doesn't seem like the appropriate venue. She led the way, and after a moment's hesitation, Jennifer and Blake followed. I brought up the rear, my heart pounding but my head held high. The study was warm and wood-paneled, with leather chairs arranged around a fireplace. Catherine gestured for everyone to sit. Now then, she said, settling into the chair behind her desk like a judge taking the bench. Let's have an honest conversation, shall we? Jennifer, Blake, Daughte has been staying with me for the past week. She's been wonderful company, and I've grown quite fond of her. So fond, in fact, that I'm considering making her a permanent part of my family. Jennifer's eyes widened. Permanent? Through adoption. Daughte would become my legal daughter and heir to my estate. I saw the calculation flash across Blake's face, followed quickly by Jennifer's. They glanced at each other. some unspoken communication passing between them. That's wonderful, Jennifer said carefully. Mother, I'm so happy you've found such a good situation. Of course, Blake and I would love to be part of your new family as well. We feel terrible about the misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said flatly. And we'd like to make amends, Jennifer continued, as if I hadn't spoken. In fact, Mother, why don't you come back home? We can talk about everything, work it out. I'm sure Mrs. Whitmore understands that family comes first. Does it? Catherine asked, her voice sharp. Because it seems to me that family came last when you turned Daughte out onto the street. But now that there's money involved, suddenly family is important again? Blake shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Whitmore, I think you're getting the wrong impression. Am I? Tell me, Blake, did you know that Daughte gave Jennifer and you nearly all of her savings over the past 3 years? That she paid for your kitchen renovation, your trip to Italy, that car you're driving? Did you know she did that, thinking she was helping her family? Blake's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I did my research, Catherine continued coldly. Once Daughte told me her story, I had my people look into it. Jennifer, your mother gave you over $200,000. Money from the sale of her home, money from her retirement accounts. She gave it willingly, lovingly, because you told her you were struggling. Were you struggling? Jennifer's face had gone pale. That's private family business. Not anymore. Not when you're sitting in my home, pretending to care about a woman you discarded like trash. We didn't discard her, Jennifer's voice rose. We needed space. Is that such a crime? To want our home back? She was supposed to stay a few months, not 3 years. Then you should have had that conversation honestly, I said, my voice shaking. You should have sat down with me and explained. Given me time to find a place, to make arrangements. Instead, you blindsided me and threw me out. Oh, please, Mother. Don't act like you had nowhere to go. You have friends you could have stayed with. Who? I demanded. Who could I have stayed with? Most of my friends died before Richard did, or moved away to be near their own children. The ones who are left are in nursing homes, or barely managing themselves. You knew that, Jennifer. You knew I had nowhere to go, and you did it anyway. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't care. 3 years of hurt, of feeling like a burden, of swallowing my pride and making myself small came pouring out. Do you know where I ended up that night? At St. Mary's Shelter. Your mother slept in a homeless shelter because her daughter couldn't be bothered to give her more than 2 hours' notice. Jennifer's face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse. But then Blake put his hand on her shoulder, and her expression hardened. That was your choice, she said. You could have called, could have asked for more time. Instead, you just left and made us worry. And now you're here, playing happy family with a stranger and acting like we're the villains. You are the villains. The words burst out of me. You took my money, took my love, took everything I had to give, and when there was nothing left, you threw me away. That's enough, Catherine said firmly. She stood up, and there was something in her posture that commanded respect. Jennifer, Blake, I think it's time you left. Mrs. Whitmore, please, Blake started, but she cut him off. I said, it's time you left. James will show you out. As if summoned, James appeared in the doorway. Jennifer and Blake had no choice but to leave, though Jennifer shot me a look that was equal parts hurt and fury. After they left, I collapsed into the chair, emotionally exhausted. Catherine poured me a glass of brandy and pressed it into my hands. Drink, she ordered gently. You did well. I don't feel like I did well. I feel like I just burned every bridge I had left. Some bridges need to be burned, Catherine said, settling into the chair next to mine. Daughte, I want you to understand something. What happened tonight was necessary. Not pleasant, but necessary. Why? Because I needed to see how they'd react. I needed to know if they were coming back for you or for what you might bring them. The realization hit me like cold water. This was a test. Yes, I'm sorry for not telling you beforehand, but it needed to be genuine. Their reactions needed to be genuine. And what did their reactions tell you? Catherine's smile was grim. Exactly what I suspected. Jennifer and Blake aren't interested in you, Dorothy. They're interested in my money, in what they think you might inherit. How do you know? Because they didn't ask how you were. They didn't ask where you'd been sleeping, what you'd been eating, if you were safe. The first thing out of Blake's mouth was investment opportunities. Jennifer's first reaction to hearing about the adoption was calculating how she could be part of the family. They showed their true colors in 5 minutes. I wanted to argue, to defend my daughter, but I couldn't. Catherine was right. What happens now? I asked. Now? Now we proceed with the plan. I wasn't lying about the adoption, Dorothy. I would genuinely like to make you my legal daughter, but I also want to use this situation to teach Jennifer and Blake a lesson. Are you willing? What kind of lesson? The kind that shows them what they lost. The kind that proves character matters more than blood. Will you trust me? I looked at this woman who'd shown me more kindness in a week than my own daughter had in years. I thought about sleeping in that shelter, about the cold fear that had gripped me when I realized I had nowhere to go. I thought about Jennifer's calculating expression tonight. Yes, I said. I trust you. Over the next 3 weeks, Catherine put her plan into motion. She began introducing me at events as her daughter-to-be. She had her lawyers draw up adoption papers. She made sure that word spread through her social circles that Dorothy Chen was to be her heir. And Jennifer and Blake came calling, again and again. At first, their visits were tentative. They'd show up with flowers, with apologies, with excuses. Blake would mention how they'd been so stressed with work and didn't mean to hurt me. Jennifer would cry and talk about how much she missed me. But Catherine and I noticed something. They never visited unless they knew Catherine would be home. Their questions were always about the business, the properties, the investments. Blake coincidentally ran into Catherine at her office downtown 3 times in 1 week. Catherine played along brilliantly. She'd welcome them warmly, include them in dinners, even invited them to a charity gala. And all the while, she watched. One evening, about a month after that first confrontation, Catherine called me to her study. I need to show you something, she said, gesturing to her laptop. But I warn you, it's not pleasant. She clicked play on a video. It showed Jennifer and Blake sitting in their car, parked outside Catherine's mansion. The camera angle suggested it was from Catherine's security system. I can't believe this, Blake was saying on the video. Your mother is going to inherit hundreds of millions, Jennifer. Hundreds of millions. I know, Jennifer replied, and hearing the excitement in her voice made my stomach turn. We just need to play this right. Be patient, act sorry, rebuild the relationship. Do you actually feel sorry? Blake asked. I mean, we weren't that bad to her. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. I feel sorry that we didn't give her more time to find a place. But honestly, Blake, she was driving me crazy. Always there, always underfoot. I don't regret asking her to leave. I just regret that it's cost us this opportunity. So what's the play? We get back in her good graces. Get back in the will. Catherine Whitmore is 75 years old. How much longer can she have? 10 years? 15? We can fake it that long if it means eventually getting that inheritance. Blake laughed. I love how mercenary you are. I learned from the best, Jennifer said, and they both laughed. Catherine stopped the video. I was crying, though I hadn't realized I'd started. I'm sorry, Catherine said gently. But you needed to see it. You needed to know for certain. How long have you had this? Since their 3rd visit. I've been recording all their conversations in the car. It's legal in Oregon as long as it's on my property. Do you want to hear more? I shook my head. I'd heard enough. What do we do now? I asked. Now, Catherine said, and her smile was not kind. We finished the lesson. The following Saturday, Catherine hosted a large dinner party. She invited Jennifer and Blake, along with about 40 other guests, including several journalists from business publications that covered her industry. I didn't know why the press was there, but I trusted Catherine's plan. After dinner, Catherine stood and clinked her glass for attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said. "I have an important announcement to make. As many of you know, I've spent the past 2 months getting to know Dorothy Chen. What started as a friendship has grown into something deeper. Dorothy has shown me what family should be: loyalty, kindness, genuine care, which is why I'm thrilled to announce that the adoption is final. As of yesterday, Dorothy is legally my daughter." There was applause around the room. Jennifer and Blake, I noticed, clapped along with forced enthusiasm. "But that's not all," Catherine continued. "I'm also announcing my retirement. I'm stepping down as CEO of Whitmore Hotels, and I'm naming Dorothy as my successor." The room erupted. I stood there in shock. This wasn't part of the plan we'd discussed. "Catherine," I whispered, but she just squeezed my hand. "Dorothy has spent her life putting others first," Catherine continued. "She's raised a daughter, supported her family, sacrificed her own dreams. Now it's time for her to have something of her own. Dorothy will be taking over the foundation arm of my business, managing our charitable giving and our scholarship programs. It's work I think she'll excel at." I saw Jennifer's face go white. This wasn't what she'd expected at all. After the announcement, I was swarmed with congratulations, but I kept my eye on Jennifer and Blake, who'd retreated to a corner. They were having an animated discussion, and Blake kept gesturing angrily. Finally, they approached Catherine and me. "Mother, Mrs. Whitmore, could we speak privately?" Jennifer asked, her voice tight. Catherine led us back to the study. This time I noticed she positioned us all directly in view of her desk camera. "What's this about?" Blake demanded, dropping all pretense of politeness. "Putting Dorothy in charge of the foundation? What about the hotels? What about the real assets?" "The foundation is a real asset," Catherine said coolly. "It controls significant resources." "But not the company," Jennifer said. "Not the hotels, not the real estate. You're giving her the charity work?" "Yes, because unlike your mother, I know what I'm doing with my money," Catherine said. "And unlike you, I care about what happens to people who need help." "This is ridiculous," Blake exploded. "Jennifer is your family. She's your blood." "She's not my blood. She's Dorothy's blood, and she's shown me exactly how much that's worth." "What are you talking about?" Jennifer demanded. Catherine opened her laptop and turned it toward them. "I've been recording your conversations. Would you like to hear them? The one where Blake calculates my net worth? The one where you discuss playing along until I die? Or perhaps the one where you laugh about how you can fake it long enough to inherit?" Jennifer's face went from white to red. "You can't. That's illegal." "It's not, actually. You were on my property. But even if it was, what are you going to do? Sue me? I'd love to see you try. I have excellent lawyers." "You manipulative," Blake started, but Catherine held up a hand. "Save it. I know exactly what you are. Both of you. You're people who measure relationships in dollars, who see family as a transaction, and I've spent 2 months proving it." "You set us up," Jennifer cried. "This whole thing was just to make us look bad." "No, Jennifer," I said, finding my voice. "This whole thing was to see if you actually cared about me. If you'd come back because you realized you'd made a mistake, or because you saw a financial opportunity. Catherine gave you every chance to prove you loved me for me. Instead, you proved you only loved what you thought I might inherit. That's not fair. You have no idea what it was like having you in our house. You were always there, always watching, always—" "I'm your mother," I shouted. "I wasn't watching you. I was living with you. And yes, maybe I was there too long. Maybe we should have had a conversation about it sooner. But you didn't give me a chance to have that conversation. You threw me out like I was nothing. Because you were smothering us. Because every time I turned around, you were there, offering to help, asking if we needed anything. Don't you understand how exhausting it is to have someone always trying to be useful?" The words hit me like a slap. Is that how she saw it? My attempts to contribute, to earn my place in her home, had been seen as smothering? I was trying not to be a burden, I said quietly. Well, you failed, Jennifer shot back, and I saw Catherine's eyes flash dangerously. I think, Catherine said, her voice like ice, that it's time you both left, and don't come back. Dorothy is my daughter now, my legal daughter, and you've shown me that you don't deserve to be part of her life. You can't keep us from our mother, Jennifer protested. I'm not keeping you from anyone. Dorothy is free to see you whenever she likes, but you're not welcome in my home, and you won't be part of my family. Is that clear? Blake grabbed Jennifer's arm. Come on, we don't need this. We don't need them. As they headed for the door, Catherine called out, Oh, and Jennifer? One more thing. I've contacted the IRS about the $200,000 Dorothy gave you. Given that it was over the gift tax limit and was never properly reported, you'll be hearing from them soon. Jennifer whirled around, her face twisted with fury and fear. You vindictive? I'm not vindictive. I'm just ensuring that the rules apply to everyone. You wanted to play games with money? Welcome to the consequences. After they left, I sank into a chair, emotionally drained. Did you really contact the IRS? I asked. I did. Is that how she saw it? My attempts to contribute, to earn my place in her home, had been seen as smothering? I was trying not to be a burden, I said quietly. Well, you failed, Jennifer shot back, and I saw Catherine's eyes flash dangerously. I think, Catherine said, her voice like ice, that it's time you both left, and don't come back. Dorothy is my daughter now, my legal daughter, and you've shown me that you don't deserve to be part of her life. You manipulative, Blake started, but Catherine held up a hand. Save it. I know exactly what you are, both of you. You're people who measure relationships in dollars, who see family as a transaction, and I've spent 2 months proving it. You set us up, Jennifer cried. This whole thing was just to make us look bad. No, Jennifer, I said, finding my voice. This whole thing was to see if you actually cared about me. A real daughter. I've watched you interact with my staff, with my friends, with people who have nothing to offer you. You're kind, thoughtful, genuinely interested in others. You don't see people as transactions. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You'll learn. And you won't be alone. I'm not actually retiring, not completely. I'll be there to guide you. But I meant what I said. I want you to have something that's yours. They were very interested to learn about the unreported gifts. Jennifer and Blake will owe quite a bit in back taxes and penalties. That seems harsh. Catherine sat down across from me. Dorothy, they stole from you. They took your money under false pretenses, then discarded you when you had nothing left. They don't get to walk away without consequences. She's still my daughter. I know. And if you want to forgive her, to try to rebuild that relationship, I won't stop you. Something you can build, something you can be proud of. Why? I asked. Why me? You could have found someone younger, someone more qualified. Because you remind me of who I was before I built all this, Catherine said softly. Before I became wealthy and cynical. You still believe in goodness, Dorothy. Even after everything you've been through, you still believe people are basically decent. I'd forgotten that. You reminded me. Tears were streaming down my face again. 3 months later, I stood in front of the board of the Whitmore Foundation, presenting my first major initiative, a program to help women over 50 who found themselves homeless due to family abandonment. We'd provide temporary housing, job training, counseling, and support to help them rebuild their lives. It's personal, I admitted to the board. Because 6 months ago, I was one of those women. I was sleeping in a shelter, wondering how my life had come to that point. If it hadn't been for Catherine, I might still be there. The program was approved unanimously. That evening, as Catherine and I celebrated over dinner, Margaret brought in the mail. Among the bills and business correspondence was a letter addressed to me. The return address was Jennifer's. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a single page, covered in Jennifer's handwriting. "Mother," it read, "I don't expect you to forgive me. Something you can build, something you can be proud of." "Why?" I asked. "Why me? You could have found someone younger, someone more qualified." "Because you remind me of who I was before I built all this," Catherine said softly. "Before I became wealthy and cynical. You still believe in goodness, Daughte. Even after everything you've been through, you still believe people are basically decent." I'd forgotten that. You reminded me. Tears were streaming down my face again. "I remember you teaching me to ride a bike, staying up all night when I had the flu, helping me study for exams. I remember you and Dad at my college graduation, so proud. I remember all the sacrifices you made for me. And I threw it all away because I was selfish and greedy and too stupid to see what I had until it was gone. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're happy with Mrs. Whitmore. I hope you're building a life that brings you joy. You deserve it. Jennifer." I set the letter down and looked at Catherine. "She wrote to apologize," I said. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Sad, relieved, angry, all of it at once. Do you want to respond?" I thought about it, about the little girl Jennifer had been, full of joy and possibility, about the woman she'd become, calculating and cold, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, losing everything had forced her to see what she'd lost. "Not yet," I said finally. "Maybe someday, but not yet. Right now, I need to focus on this new life, this new family, on being the person I want to be, not the person I was trying to be for Jennifer." Catherine nodded. "That sounds wise. Besides," I added with a small smile, "I have a foundation to run. Can't let my mother down, can I?" Catherine laughed, and the sound filled the room with warmth. 6 months ago, I'd been abandoned at a homeless shelter, believing my life was over. Now I was the director of a major charitable foundation, the legal daughter of one of the most successful businesswomen in the Pacific Northwest, and most importantly, I was finally, truly, home. Not because of blood or obligation, but because of choice. Because Catherine had chosen me, and I had chosen her. Because sometimes, family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who stands beside you when you have nothing left to offer but yourself. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any inheritance. Looking back now, I understand what Catherine was trying to teach both of us. She needed to learn that genuine connection still existed, that not everyone was motivated by money. And I needed to learn that I deserved love and respect, that I didn't have to diminish myself to earn my place in someone's life. Jennifer taught me that lesson too, in her own painful way. By showing me what conditional love looks like, she helped me recognize the real thing when I found it. I don't know if Jennifer and I will ever rebuild our relationship. Maybe someday, when enough time has passed and enough healing has happened, we'll find a way forward. Or maybe we won't. Either way, I've learned that I'll be okay. Because family, real family, isn't about biology. It's about showing up. It's about caring when there's nothing to gain. It's about seeing someone at their absolute lowest and offering a hand up, not because you have to, but because you want to. Catherine gave me that. And in return, I gave her what her son never could. Genuine love, freely given, with no strings attached. That's the real inheritance. Not the money, not the foundation, not the house or the staff or the life of comfort. It's knowing that someone chose you, and you chose them back, and together you built something real. Sometimes the best families are the ones we make ourselves. And sometimes, the worst betrayal leads to the greatest blessing. I learned both those truths on the floor of a homeless shelter, from a woman in disguise who saw something in me worth saving, not because I was useful or convenient or profitable, but because I was human and hurting and deserving of kindness. That's what I try to remember now, as I work with women who come through our foundation, each of them carrying their own story of betrayal, their own wounds from family who failed them. I remember how it felt to be invisible, to be discarded, and I make sure they know they're seen, because that's what Catherine did for me. She saw me when I was invisible to everyone else, including my own daughter, and that made all the difference.